Hey, everybody. See, wore my striped shirt today. Obviously, it's going to cause you all a little bit of discomfort if you're watching the stream. But I felt like I had to get in the French mood because we're talking about the Second French Revolution, obviously. Seems like it's finally going to happen. I don't know. Just as I'm recording this, Ocelot, the owner of G2, is tweeting that something is going to happen later on today for G2, some kind of announcement. I wonder what it's going to be about. Maybe it's going to be about everything that's been discussed on Reddit and over the last couple of weeks regarding the French scene, because it certainly does sound like we've got another revolution on our hands. Like things are going to shift, and almost to the same level as we had in the past when LDLC and Titan, the great divide, the great split, and the great reshuffle into the dominant LDLC roster that we got that actually ended up winning DreamHack Winter 2014. So, and later on became one of the best teams, moving on into Envy, winning a second major at Cluj-Napoca 2015. Basically, the French, they've got chops. They've definitely got the firepower. It's a matter of like how long the teams can stay together and functioning properly. But what's fun is it seems like we're finally going to go for the combination that we haven't seen until now, which is Shox and Kenny on a team together. And it's been a long time. I felt like paparazzi sometimes where I was at events and I'd see them out of the corner of my eye at the bar, side by side, talking over a drink. And I'd just like snap a picture and send it to Thorin, and Thorin would just giggle and obviously, come a little, because that's what we all want to see. We want to see Kenny and Shoxy together because it's one of the final combinations of the top scene French players that we have left to actually watch and enjoy. So just to give you a quick rundown before we really get into it, there was an article that came out on the Score Esports, came out on the Score Esports, and G2 Esports to sign 3 envious players, happy to form a separate team. So this is where it gets fun, because it's not going exactly like we expected, where Scream would wind up on that second French team, right? Sticking with the French players, playing it out there. Not happening this time, because it seems like Scream might be the one guy who's actually going to branch off and form a different roster, which is interesting. Whether he joins FaZe, the international roster, it seems like there are rumors that he's actually going to go ahead and try that out. Definitely worthwhile. But G2, after a lack of form over the past several months, enough was enough. And Envy, over the past year, pretty much, we haven't seen hardly anything at all from them. It's been an uphill battle for them, going out in groups and majors, basically just not performing up to the level that we expect from those players. The Envy roster, I mean, the kind of firepower that they have on that team, the team that went on to win Envy, Cluj-Napoca 2015, that major, and to make the finals before that at Cologne. It's been a very rough 2016 for them. That's Happy, that's NBK, Apex, Kenny. And then obviously you had a few roster changes. Devil, unfortunately for him, came into that roster and basically got beat upside the head because it's an impossible situation. If you're that 5th player going to be moving in, it's almost like joining NIP, where it's just like this system that you're trying to fit into, because the system is already there and you're not really going to be able to do much to change that system. So you kind of have to like make do with what you have and try and find your happy place there, because otherwise it's not going to work out for you. Just ask Michael, right? So, I mean, Devil came into Envy, didn't pan out for him. Sixer, the latest guy to join up with the roster, and unfortunately for him, it's just the timing was all off. I don't think that Sixer did a particularly poor job. I think he actually did pretty much what was expected of him. Didn't drop off on the frags, delivered on that front, obviously there to support and help the other players get whatever they want done in the rounds. Feel like he did a good job there as well. Had the right mindset, it seemed. Whenever I talked to him at events, he was always very focused, always very driven, said that he was putting in the hours. And so it didn't really feel like Sixer, it didn't really feel like he could have done much more. It just so happened that he joined Envious when Envious was just this dysfunctional unit that wasn't going anywhere. And really, when you're the new guy coming into that sort of situation, what can you really hope to do apart from survive? So just tough break for Sixer, really, having to basically give up everything in like the real world in order to take his shot and get into an actual professional team for CSGO, only to get slammed 2 months later and get cast out into the wild. So that's painful, right? So I mean, going into this, we might as well kind of look at the new rosters that are going to be coming from this great shuffle. And the reason why I'm excited to see at least one of these rosters, actually almost as excited to see this new roster as I was back in the days of LDLC when LDLC formed up, because yes, there was the firepower on that team, but more importantly, I felt like there was a lot of thought put into the roster. Like the roles were clearly defined, and it felt like everybody with their roles was going to fit into this one killing unit very well. And they had everything necessary to really form a dominant team, that there was definitely reasoning behind the roster. And it feels the same way here, because this is definitely looking like a team, like a world beater kind of team. You have Apex, you have Kenny, and you have NBK coming from the Envy roster. And then you have Shox and Body, who are sticking around from the G2 roster. And Smiths is going to hang up the mouse and take a coaching role. Now, that's actually painful for me to say, just because, I mean, I never really got on board with the whole, whiffs, bash him into the ground kind of thing. I mean, the guy definitely worked. He's been around in CS for a long time. It's basically been his entire professional career has been as a CS player. And much like Fiflaurin, actually, the more I talk with the players, the more I talk with Smiths, it feels like a situation similar to Fiflaurin's, where he had to fill a role on a team that nobody else wanted to fill, and because it had to be filled, in this case, upping role, right? Somebody had to do it, and he decided to do it and take that on himself. Definitely not his primary. He's talked about it in the past, where he'd much rather be a rifler, but he took the op role, tried to do the best that he could, right? So, I mean, it's just a tough situation for him, because you really do want to end such a long career on a high note. And unfortunately for him, this major, the E-League major, really was just a disaster for him. He didn't do well at all. I think he bottomed out on the ratings. He had a couple of good moments here and there, certainly, but overall wasn't the best tournament to go out on. So I feel a bit for Smiths that that's the way that it ends. But it doesn't seem like he's going to be giving up on CS at all. Looks like he's going to be shifting over into a coach role, and he'll have more input on how the team actually plays the game, which is interesting, because I have heard in the past that he has been more of like that kind of support secondary caller, giving insight, giving input on how rounds should be played out, along with, in this case on G2, Shoxy, right? That they were kind of like a duo working together. Shoxy calling the shots, but Smith's there to give his experience and to give his insight on the rounds. So if he's going to be playing as a coach now, if he's going to be a coach now, feels like he might fit that role fairly well, right? We've definitely seen players take to that role who have a long playing history and then switch into it. Starks comes to mind mainly as the standout in that case, because really, I mean, that was an incredible switch from Starix. This got replaced on Navi, took the coach role, really took to the coach role, did all of the work, busted his ass, took over the calling role, did well there. And I mean, Starix really just embraced the role of coach for his team. And so feel like Smiths could be a player that could do that as well, really embrace that coaching role and try and make a difference there. Because when I look at this new roster, right, it seems like everything is very defined. There is one little bit where I'm just a little shaky, where it comes down to NBK and Body, as far as, who's going to be hard support, or is it going to be more of a split between the two, depending. NBK's definitely got the firepower. Body has shown that he can have the firepower as well. And I think mainly Body, from what I've heard, is coming along because he has like the right mentality. He's another like Sixer, right? He came onto G2, difficult situation, but he put in the work, put in the effort, was willing to learn from the players who had experience, like Smith, like Shox, right? Really just absorbed everything. And I think it's mainly that's carrying him along to this new team. It's the veteran players who are believing that this guy, he's actually got a plateau that we haven't seen yet. He hasn't reached it yet. And so he's got the right mindset to get there one day. So we want to make that investment, take that risk on him. So I think that's really exciting to see for Body. Just going to be curious to see how exactly this new team is going to use him. But when it comes to the rest of the roster, I mean, it's kind of clear cut, isn't it? Or it does look like it's going to be very solid. I mean, Apex is the entry fragger, Kenny as the opper, Shox is the in-game leader, could be the lurker as well, right off on the sides. NBK also experienced playing on the sides, on the extremities of the map, right? Relaying information back to the in-game leader. So, I mean, it feels like there can be a very solid system here that's built around just raw firepower and just a sprinkling, of tactics. But I think they are going to revolve mainly around the style that Happy claims to have created, which is, the 4-1 or the 1-3-1 kind of setup, where you essentially build your offense around a death ball. and that death ball kind of goes crashing in based off the information that it gets off the lurkers out on the extremities, or it's part of the plan, right? The lurkers set up the play and then the rest move in as a unit. So it feels like that style can definitely work with this kind of firepower that you have on this team between one of the very best entry fraggers. That was actually one of the interesting things about the old LDLC lineup. When it actually came through, I had the same thing in mind, and this is what we all thought. Kiyoshima would be this entry fragger. He'd go in hard, and then everything else would kind of follow behind him. Shoxy in his second, NBK there to support, Happy, right? You kind of saw how that system would work, but there, a few months in, it started to get a little shaky. Kiyoshima didn't want to entry anymore, and so you even had Shoxy taking the entry role, and you start to see where it can kind of fall apart. So I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to work out here with this new Super French team. But it does feel like the roles in this case are a little bit more well-defined, right? You have an opper who is one of the best oppers in the world, if not the best opper in the world when he is on his game. You have one of the best entry fraggers who has said in the past, when NBK is behind me, I'm fearless because I know that he's going to play like a team. He's going to be right behind me, and we're going to get in there. He's going to trade if I die. And so Apex should feel very comfortable, very confident on this team as an entry fragger. Shoxy as well knows all of these players very well. He's obviously been, taking Body under his wing, so developing Body as a player. So he knows that Body fits into his system, and he's definitely played with the rest of them apart from Kenny. But, it feels like there's definitely all of the necessary elements here for this to be a world eater kind of team that's going to just murder everything. The same way that I felt when I was looking at that new LDLC lineup way back, and you look at that on paper, you're just like, these guys are going to just be monstrous, right? Even though back then it was very interesting because obviously you had the Titan that was running the Cali Kenny combo, that double op that was just unreal. And then we all found out that Cali was hacking, and then it all kind of fell apart from there, right? But for a period of time, DreamHack Stockholm, where that team just murdered, and it was really impressive to see. But again, Cali, you bastard. All right. Now, though, we're going to get into the second team. And this is where I kind of wonder, right? Because I honestly thought that the likes of Scream, the likes of RPK would go and join Existence on LDLC. Thought that was definitely in the cards, right? They've got the firepower, they've got the experience. The only issue is that I heard rumors that Existence, he had received the offers, but that he had turned them down, is what I had heard. Now these are all rumors, right? And this is just my opinion going off of it, right? But that he wanted to have players that he would form and that he would go from. I don't know if I truly buy that though, just because it is tough to. Yes, you want to form players, and you're gonna have a system, but with like veteran players Scream has certainly got the experience now on the top. RPK, just been around for ages, right? It's kind of hard to turn down that talent. And there's even a tweet from Existence that came out with this article where, Existence is calling RPK out, saying, after everything I've done for you, this is not what I expected, right? So, I mean, it feels like maybe there was a little something going on there where Existence was expecting to pick up a couple of these players. But when you look at it, right, I don't think that LDLC really stood a chance to pick up some of these players. These players are used to making fat bank on salaries and on competing in Tier 1 events and traveling the world, right? Something that Existence on LDLC just can't offer right now. He's struggling with ESWCs. He's struggling to make qualifiers. Existence right now, he's having a very difficult time on a team that financially I don't think is going to be able to be competitive when it comes to salaries right now and where those salaries are at. When you've got teams that are apparently raking in between 16 to 20,000 a month on salary, right? I don't think that LDLC with Existence heading it is going to be able to back that up. Also hearing that, there isn't necessarily that revival of confidence in Existence from the top French players right now. They're not really sure where he's at. He was kicked from G2 for a reason, and that was the fact that they were never able to make it through the groups at majors under Existence's leadership. And I don't know if he's done enough with LDLC to really prove that he is going to be capable of leading a French team to the top again. I mean, it's been a very long time. It's been a long struggle for Existence. There was a time when they were the best team back on Very Games at the beginning. DreamHack winner 2013, that semifinal. Again, if you haven't watched that semifinal, that was one of the greatest games ever between them and NiP in the semifinal. That was the final, it felt like. And I think NiP, that's what did them in when they faced off against Fnatic. They just couldn't get their heads in the game versus Fnatic because after just going toe-to-toe with Very Games and barely beating them, think they almost felt like, well, that's it. We won, boys. And then they got slapped around by Fnatic in the finals. Brutal turn of events there for NIP. But at one point, Very Games was a beast of a team, and that was with Existence at the helm. But it's been a very long time since then, and I don't think he ever really recovered from that. So for him to expect to pick up these players, I think it was a stretch. Coffee, it's so good. Right. So what the new roster instead is going to look like, it's Happy, so who's going to be leading and who's definitely struggled quite a bit this year, claiming that his team lacked confidence, that he lacks confidence, that he's just not putting in the work. A real struggle there for Happy, but who has been through these sorts of shuffles in the past as well. When LDLC broke up around him and he got left out in the cold, it was 2015. He's been through these kinds of shuffles before, and so at the beginning it looked like, okay, Happy's going to be on the outside of this super roster. What's going to happen with him? But it looks like he has, in a way, managed to land on his feet somewhat, because he is going to have RPK with him. So RPK, instead of going over to Existence, it looks like he's going to follow along with Happy. I'm a bit surprised that Scream isn't joining, because again, RPK, Scream, Happy, you could see some firepower there. You can see something going on, but it doesn't look like Scream is going to be joining. Instead, it's going to be Sixer. So he's coming over from Envy, and he's keeping his career alive so far. He definitely had a tough break with Envy. Feel like this is going to be his big moment to show what he's capable of, because it's a fresh roster. You're going to start from zero. So when you get your roles, this is going to be your time to excel and really put your mark on the map. So for Sixer, this is a great opportunity for Sixer. He's doing everything he can not to fall back into the doldrums right now, right into the dark chasm of the sub-top French scene that it's so difficult to get out of, as we see with Existence, right? So Happy, RPK, Sixer, and then this is where it gets a little fuzzy. Speaking of Existence and LDLC, it looks like Alexander XMS Forte is going to be joining. Forte is going to be joining. So interesting. Checked up a little bit on him as far as recent LAN results, and it seems like actually on LAN this guy isn't too shabby, right? When you're considering obviously the competition that they're going up against, is a bit of a gap between the tier 2, the sub top, and obviously the tier 1. And so again, there's going to be a couple of risks taken here, because XMS, he's done all right at ESWC, he's done all right on LAN, but not versus the best. And so a little bit of a question mark there from him, but he is coming off of LDLC, so that kind of sticks it to Existence a little bit. And then you have Davidovek Dobra. I shouldn't even try. So Davidovek is the last player is going to round out this roster, and he comes from Team Vexed, another sub-top French team, it looks like. So, and again, reasonable performances online. Online is one thing, though. We all know that that's not the focus. LAN is where it matters. And so you have two variables here that are kind of hard to quantify, kind of hard to put your finger on. Not like with the super team, right, that's being formed with Apex and the rest of them. There, it's very easy to kind of like put your finger on how everything's going to fit together, that puzzle, right? You can see it. When it comes to this, however, there are a few question marks. Not quite sure how they want to build this out. I have a very difficult time seeing Happy change his role from lurker, right, and in-game leader. RPK, second man in, third man in, right? So it kind of leaves the tough roles down to Sixer, XMS, and Davidovek to figure out like who's going to do what and how that works. So Happy's obviously got a system there, but this second team really feels like a stretch. You're not really sure what to expect from it, and because I don't feel like they have the heavy firepower. We haven't seen that kind of level from Happy in quite some time. So unless he rejuvenates his ability to get headshots, I'm really wondering where the firepower is going to come from, right? That's going to keep them competitive. And the last bit actually is interesting, is that they actually do apparently have a coach who has a Counter-Strike source history. France source goes a long way. But Malek, and did a little bit of looking around on him as well. And he actually is a streamer and YouTube content creator, basically creates guides and tip videos, stuff like that. So clearly puts a lot of thought into CSGO. Now, whether he's going to be able to coach and whether Happy is going to work well with him, that's the real question. Not really sure if they have a long history together or anything of that sort. So I feel like there's a lot of question marks going around with this one, with this second team, especially considering apparently they've been approached by several organizations, including Envious. So if Envy decide to keep them on, Very interesting. So, very interesting. Just, I think what it all sums up is that Existence, he tried to get his foot in the door here, tried to make his way back into the top, and basically got that door slammed on him. So, tough break for Existence, real tough, especially because his team is getting, poached as well in the process. So that's painful for him. And, well, I think really all the eyes are just going to be on this new French beast monster team, headed up by Shoxy and Kenny. That is going to be fascinating to see if they're going to be able to actually go competitive or not. They have quite a bit of time off now, I believe like a month and a half almost, where they aren't going to be attending events. And so once it gets locked in place, then it's going to be very interesting because they're going to have a lot of time to just kind of sit and figure things out. I would like them to have actually had like a small LAN, like a DreamHack or something, right, to do just to see how they perform together on LAN, how the chemistry works on LAN. But if they have the time to just kind of get some online games in and focus on prac and try and figure out the system, that's interesting. It's going to be very fascinating to watch these guys, and I think we're in for some very exciting times here for CSGO over the next couple of months, right, with Astralis at the top and VP showing that they're still world beaters, world competitors, right? New French super team on the way, maybe a new Fnatic as well. I mean, fascinating, fun fucking times, guys. So yeah, just some thoughts on what this new French team is all about, but I definitely think that this new French team is one that's going to challenge Astralis very soon here for the top spot. So we'll see. Fun times. See you guys.